A piece too long. Dr. Relac adjusted his spectacles, even though his species had long since evolved past the need for them. The gesture, he had once explained to a human, was comforting, like a ritual. The human had simply smiled and said, "Old habits. We know a thing or two about those." Now, staring at the Galactic broadcast flashing red across his terminal, Relac found himself reaching for those same glasses again. His fronds quivered slightly as he read the words. The VA Car Dominion declares open war against Earth and its protectorates. War. The word hadn't been uttered seriously in over 1,000 years, not since the Treaty of Doskera ended the last great conflict. A millennium of cooperation, trade, and diplomacy had made war seem like a dusty footnote in the archives Relax so adored. But Earth was different. He pulled up the historical files. He didn't need to, he knew them by heart, but reflex insisted. Humanity's history was a catalog of contradiction, peace tempered by violence, civilization edged with chaos. They were poets and tacticians, dreamers and killers. The Council had long debated whether humans were mad or magnificent. Now, the galaxy would find out. High Marshal Draker of the VA Car Dominion stood aboard his flagship, the Blood Crown, flanked by his generals. He was a brute by most species standards, towering, tusked, adorned in ceremonial blood metal armor. "Earth is a myth," he declared, voice echoing through the command chamber. A sleeping lion that has long forgotten how to bite. His subordinates nodded, some more hesitantly than others. Their intelligence had shown Earth to be unguarded, peaceful, laughably vulnerable. The humans had no standing army. Their warships were mothballed in orbital museums. Their youth spoke of peace as a birthright, not a prize. Still, something in the air felt off. A technician turned from his station. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Sol system. It's very short." Draker sneered. "Play it." The message appeared on the holoscreen. A human woman, seated casually on what appeared to be a balcony overlooking the moon. She wore no uniform, no medals, only a warm smile and a steaming mug in hand. She leaned in slightly and said, with a chuckle, "You sure about that?" Then the feed cut. Draker's tusks flared. "Is this a joke?" No one laughed. Back on Earth, Ambassador Maria leaned back at her chair as the Council erupted in noise. Species from every corner of the galaxy shouted in overlapping languages. Accusations, questions, fear. The VA car had struck multiple trade routes. Their war declarations were not symbolic. They meant to conquer. And Earth, the humans, had replied with a mug and a smile. Mireya, human representative to the Galactic Council, watched the chaos unfold. She wasn't worried. She knew her people. "Ambassador," hissed Counselor Karthana of the Iliari, "is your planet taking this seriously?" Mireya tilted her head. "Of course." "Then why?" Karthana snapped. "Did you send a woman laughing as your official response?" Mireya stood slowly, her voice calm. "Because you all have forgotten who we are." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes, or analogs, of every species. "For 1,000 years, we chose peace. We planted gardens where we once built bunkers. We told stories to our children instead of preparing them for war. But don't mistake kindness for weakness. You forget," she continued, "that peace was not given to us. We earned it, in blood, fire, and madness. We chose to put down our weapons. That doesn't mean we forgot how to use them." There was silence now. Maria smiled, not unkindly. "You want to know why we laughed?" she asked. "Because we knew this day would come eventually. And because the galaxy has gotten soft." She let the words hang. "When the wolves wake, it is not with a snarl," she finished. "It's with a grin." Then she sat back down and sipped her tea. In a forgotten hangar beneath Antarctica, lights flickered to life. Steel doors groaned as ancient systems rebooted. A voice, calm, synthetic, spoke into the dark. Project Prometheus reactivated. Threat level. Amusing. Welcome back, humanity. Somewhere in the silence, an old war machine laughed, waking the wolves. In the shadow of Saturn's rings, something stirred. Buried in the ice crust of Mimas, humanity's forward listening post, codenamed Cerberus, had been dormant for centuries. No crew, No signals, just silence, broken only by cosmic radiation and the slow groan of shifting ice. Until now, as the VA car fleet passed through the outer system, a single spike in gravitational distortion triggered a dormant sensor. That sensor pinged an AI. The AI verified the trajectory. Then, without hesitation or fanfare, it executed a program labeled simply Ragnarok Conditional Alpha. Within minutes, encrypted signals began ricocheting across hidden relays embedded throughout the Sol system. Most species would have missed them, but a few old souls, both mechanical and biological, recognized the call. Humanity had turned in its sword, but it had never thrown it away. Captain Jane Asari stood at the edge of the Pacific Spire, a massive arcology rising from the ocean near what had once been the ruins of New Tokyo. She had spent the last decade teaching martial philosophy to civilian academies, wearing peaceful robes and talking about restraint. Now she wore armor again, sleek, matte black, fitted with nano-weave smart plating. The seal on her left shoulder was faint but unmistakable, 12th Terran Legion. The Chucklers. It was a name given by enemies long ago, intended as an insult, something about how they laughed on the battlefield. The humans had adopted it with pride. Are they really that stupid? Her second-in-command, Reyes, muttered beside her, eyes scanning the tactical hollow. Red dots spread across the outer colonies like spilled blood. Jane didn't answer at first. She was watching a video feed. It was old, footage from the Earth-Altari conflict 600 years ago. In it, a platoon of outnumbered human soldiers danced behind enemy lines while mortars exploded around them. Their laughter echoed through the comms. "We warned them," Jane finally said, powering up her gauntlets. They just didn't listen. On board the Blood Crown, High Marshal Draker remained unconvinced. The humans had responded with minor skirmishes, some drone attacks, disruptions in the Dominion's comms network. Petty things. Annoying, yes, but hardly strategic. Not the force of legend. "Where's their fleet?" he barked. "Unknown, sir," replied one of his lieutenants. "Sol system is shielded. Every probe we've sent has failed to return data. Orbital interference, possibly deliberate." "Cowards," Draker spat. "They hide behind myths and shadows." But the myths were spreading. On neutral worlds, old veterans whispered names from humanity's war history. Units like the Ghost Wolves of Neptune, the Iron Choir of Mars, the Laughing Dead, tales long thought embellished at best, fabrications at worst, were being pulled from museums and dusted off like sacred relics. Because humans didn't just fight, they made war artistic. Back on Earth, the reactivation continued. Beneath the Martian sands, ancient railguns rose on hydraulic lifts, their barrels glistening with frost. In the asteroid belt, civilian mining rigs detached from their moorings and began repurposing into mobile weapons platforms, pre-fitted, pre-designed, waiting only for a signal. In orbit, an AI spoke with another. "Prometheus online. Nemesis active. Prometheus. Shall we wake the others?" Nemesis. Only those who remember how to laugh. Meanwhile, Earth's population didn't panic. There were no riots, no mass evacuations, no desperate broadcasts begging for peace. Instead, there were subtle shifts, schools that quietly switched from art classes to tactical simulations, factories that stopped making plush toys and began printing ceramic armor plating. Human children asked their grandparents about the old wars. The old ones smiled and began telling stories they had hoped never to repeat. The galaxy expected terror. What it got was preparation and amusement. In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Maria stood once more, this time before a nervous assembly. The VA car had issued another threat. This time they promised the total subjugation of Earth within 3 solar rotations. Maria smirked. "Let me explain something to you all," she said, her voice crisp. "Humans don't start wars out of boredom or conquest. We start them when we're annoyed." Laughter echoed from the human delegation section. "They think we forgot, but we didn't forget. We just chose not to remember, until now." She paused, then added almost kindly, "And you should be grateful that when we remembered, we smiled." In the cold dark beyond Neptune, a stealth carrier uncloaked, painted on its hull in chipped white letters. HTS Midnight's joke. Its crew? Volunteers. Its mission? Classified. Its mood? Eager. The first strike. High Marshal Draker was confident. His fleets had surrounded 3 human colonies, Alpheon Prime, Ceres Junction, and New Kyoto. Intelligence reported limited defenses. Civilian population density. No planetary shields. Standard occupation protocols had been issued. Take them quickly, he ordered. Show them resistance is futile. It was a mistake. The VA Car Strike Force entered the Alpheon system under full burn, weapons hot. They expected surrender signals, maybe desperate transmissions begging for mercy. Instead, they found silence. The lead cruiser slowed near orbit, scanners probing the colony. No defensive installations detected, the pilot noted. All ground systems appear dormant. No power readings. Odd, said Commander Vrex, narrowing his eyes. Deploy the dropships. The first shuttle broke atmosphere and vanished. No explosion. No signal loss. Just gone. Moments later, the second shuttle followed. Same result. Confused, Vrex ordered a drone recon. The drone returned 5 minutes later, sending back grainy footage of what looked like a city made of foam and cardboard. Life-size cutouts of civilians. Fake weapon emplacements made of wood. A trap. Before Vrex could react, the VA car fleet was hit from behind. 10 human corvettes, previously hidden inside an ice-covered asteroid, emerged like ghosts. They were small, agile, and utterly lethal. Their first barrage crippled 3 Dominion destroyers before the VA car even had time to pivot. "Human vessels inbound," screamed the tactical officer. "They're jamming our targeting systems." Static and laughter filled the bridge audio. Actual, human laughter. On board the HTS Midnight's joke, Captain Jane Asari leaned back in her chair, her feet up on the console. "Status?" she asked, not looking up from her coffee. "VA car fleets in disarray. They're trying to realign their formation, but can't track us through the jammers," Reyes reported with a grin. "Also, we may have hacked their emergency comms and piped in 20th century human sitcoms. They are confused." Jane chuckled. "Told you they'd never expect Seinfeld." Outside, the vacuum of space lit up with railgun bursts and missile trails. But to the crew of the Midnight's joke, it was surgical, clinical, efficient. "Patch me through to all units," Jane said, sitting up. She tapped the mic and spoke with a cool clarity. "This is Captain Asari. Remember, don't waste ammo. These guys aren't dangerous. They're overconfident. Give him hell, and smile while you're doing it." Back at Galactic Command, the Council watched in silence. The human fleet had uploaded the entire battle to the public data network in real time. Multicam feeds, helmet POVs, strategic overlays, all with sarcastic subtitles like, "Oops, there goes another flagship, and is this your king?" Ambassador Maria stood with her arms folded, watching as one Dominion cruiser collided with its own support ship while trying to flee. Counselor Carthana's voice trembled. That's not war. That's mockery." "No," Maria said, smiling faintly. "That is restraint." On Ceres Junction, the VA car ground troops advanced through the settlement. No resistance, not even locked doors. Lights were on. Music played softly from empty homes. Then the doors locked behind them. Explosives rigged in furniture detonated with precise, surgical force, disabling, not killing. Smoke flooded the streets. Human drones, small and insect-like, swarmed the disoriented soldiers and injected mild paralytics. Every trooper was unconscious in under 6 minutes. When Dominion Command demanded an update, all they received was a single looping image, a hand-drawn sign taped to a wall. This was fun. Thanks for the practice. By the end of the week, humanity had retaken all 3 colonies, without a single confirmed casualty on their side. They sent back the surviving VA car in escape pods, each fitted with an ancient Earth artifact, a whoopee cushion, a rubber chicken, or a handwritten card that said, simply, LOL. The Dominion was stunned. High Marshal Draker stared at the reports, veins pulsing. They think this is a joke, he growled. No, sir, whispered his advisor. They think you are. In a bar on Luna Base, veterans and cadets watched the footage play over and over, raising drinks in laughter and disbelief. A young recruit asked, "Do we really need to humiliate them like that?" An older sergeant grinned. "No, but we do it so they remember." "Remember what?" The sergeant finished his drink and leaned in. "That humans don't fight wars for glory or conquest. We fight them like bar fights, dirty, creative, and laughing the whole damn time." In the void above Jupiter, a new human fleet gathered. Bigger, meaner. The time for warning shots was over. Echoes of iron and flame. The VA car high command convened in silence. No fanfare, no speeches, only the low hum of strategic holodoubles displaying growing clusters of red excess, each one representing a lost fleet, failed operation, or disabled colony unit. Earth's mocking responses have been broadcast across the galaxy. No censorship could hide the humiliation. High Marshal Draker sat at the head of the council, tusks tight against his jaw. For the first time in his long military career, he didn't speak. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he feared what would come if he opened his mouth. Doubt. The humans were not fighting for survival. They were enjoying this. He finally stood. "We strike Earth directly. No more games. We end this." No one argued. And that was the most terrifying sign of all. On Earth, preparations were finishing, but not in the way most of the galaxy expected. There were no sirens, no wailing alerts, no mass weapons manufacturing. Instead, old veterans dusted off their medals and visited schools, sharing stories not of glory, but of resolve. Engineers tuned satellites that hadn't sung in centuries. Artists painted warships with ironic graffiti and ancient memes. Comedians performed stand-up routines in orbital drop pods. Humanity didn't dread the oncoming war. It rehearsed its punchlines. At the Terran Unified Defense HQ in Iceland, once a global peacekeeping archive, now a reawakened nerve center, Admiral Lin Bao studied the projections. The VA car were coming, and this time they weren't probing or testing. This was a hammer strike, a full-on planetary invasion. "How many ships?" she asked. 75 war cruisers, 2 dreadnoughts, and at least 10 supply carriers, her aide responded. "ET 32 hours. Lin nodded, calm. "And already assets. 87 stealth corvettes, 5 black site carriers, orbital defense grid online, AI support fully awakened." She smiled softly. "Perfect. Let's set the table." The VA car fleet arrived at Earth with brutal precision. Every formation aligned. Weapons hot. Shields active. But Earth looked empty. No orbital fleets. No space stations broadcasting surrender or defense. The blue planet turned silently below, indifferent. Unshaken. "Something is wrong," growled Draker. "Scan again." "Already doing so," replied the tactical officer. "Their defense grid is live, but not responding. It's just watching." Before Draker could respond, the skies turned red. All at once, Earth's defense grid activated, but not to attack. Instead, it lit up in a brilliant, shifting holographic display. A massive animated smiley face stretching across the sky, followed by 4 words in dozens of alien languages. "We were just warming up." Then Earth struck. Stealth corvettes burst from the dark side of the moon, weaving through the fleet with mathematical precision. Every 10th shot was live fire. The rest? Disruptors and EMP pulses designed to cripple, not kill. The dreadnought Ravager of Voss attempted to fire on New York. It exploded mid-charge. A nanite swarm had been hiding inside its own coolant systems. The VA car, Dreadnought Emperor's Wrath, turned its sights on London. Moments before firing, every targeting system in its control bridge was overridden, replaced with a rerun of a human cooking show from the 22nd century. The gunner's chair ejected into space with a squeaky honk. Humans were fighting, yes, but they were also performing. The most lethal battle in centuries looked like slapstick war theater. Inside Earth's stratosphere, Captain Janissary led a fleet of atmospheric attack drones. As they dove toward the exposed carriers of the Dominion fleet, her comms opened to her strike group. "All right, people," she said cheerfully, "let's wrap this up. Remember, extra points for creativity." Her second-in-command laughed. "Winner buys drinks? Loser does stand-up comedy at the post-war gala." Drones descended, cutting precision trails through capital ships while human pilots cracked jokes in real time. The footage was streamed live across the galaxy by human design. The message was clear. We are not what you expected. We never were. By the time the dust settled, 32 VACAR ships had been disabled or captured. Not destroyed, disarmed. Their crews were alive, medically treated, and delivered escape pods with coffee, medical kits, and handwritten notes that read, "Nice try. Come back when you've read a history book." High Marshal Draker never issued another command. He watched from the broken bridge of his flagship as Earth receded into the distance, brilliant and whole. Not victorious, simply unimpressed. At the Galactic Council, Ambassador Maria stood once more. No need to speak this time. The feeds spoke for themselves. Still, she gave one final address. "You asked us to explain the human war doctrine," she said. "Here it is. We do not fight for territory, dominance, or revenge. We fight to protect peace. And if you threaten that peace, well," she smiled, "then we remember who we used to be, and we laugh while we remind you." In a quiet room on Earth, an old warbot sat on a porch, watching birds fly over a distant lake. A child ran up to it and asked, "Is the war over?" The warbot turned slowly. "Yes," it replied, voice metallic but soft. And they laughed all the way home.